Bartam full of palachaba.
Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. My name is Mishka and in today's video we will be building what I'm calling the Shroom Cafe. So it is a build that I wanted to resemble mushrooms kind of. Yeah, and we are building on the Gringles lot, which is a 30 by 30 lot, and it is situated in Sprucederry Grove in Innisgreen, which is the world that comes with the new pack Enchanted by Nature. I'm so excited to show you guys this build because it came to me on a whim and I needed to finish it as soon as, I had the idea. So I did do a draft for it and I was like, okay, because at first I was like, I don't even know if this is going to work out. I don't know how I'm going to make this roof or the roofs look like mushrooms. And I was thinking about how I can do that, how I can get the shape that I had in my head and so on. So I had to do a draft first, and then when I finished the draft I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it and record it. So you can see we're starting off with a lot of circles. Now I've discussed, or I said in my previous video, which if you haven't seen that video was a build that I made for a dark fairy, so a home with a fairy aesthetic but like for a darker fairy, and then it also had an apothecary studio. I will link that in the description as well as in the cards if you would like to look at that video. And also, before I get too far into this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and you would like to see more. But yes, as I was discussing before that whole tangent is I was building a lot with circle rooms, and I have said previously that circle rooms can be very finicky. And so here you can see I'm doing a lot of adjusting with the circle rooms, and I discovered that actually it's better to place one half of the circle, especially if you're placing it against a straight wall. Rather place one half of the circle if it wouldn't affect the look that you're going for, because then you can draw rooms inside without getting the pop-up that it's an invalid circle or round room or something like that. So that's what I discovered throughout here. So in the front section I placed a full circle, but instead I could have placed a semicircle in that front section and in many other parts, which would have saved a lot of hassles with the circle rooms. And then if you really want it to look like a circle, unfortunately then you will not have a choice but to then place the entire circle and work around the game's limitations with circle rooms. Like I said in the previous video as well, I hope that they come up with a better method for circle rooms in the future, because this is just not it. But anyways, we've moved on to the roofing now, and you can see I'm trying to shape them like mushrooms. So I used the circle roofing, and I first placed down one and then dropped it down completely so that I could pull out the eaves and give that mushroom look kind of. And then I placed one on top of that to give the more roundish shape at the top, if that makes any sense at all. And you can see I'm still struggling to adjust. One thing that I did worry about with this build was trying to roof it because of all of the circle rooms and the nooks and the crannies that I may not be able to cover up with roofing. Luckily though, this is the kind of build where you can get away with covering up things with plants. So I did that a lot here just to make sure that all parts of the roof was covered. And then here at the back as well, just so that it wasn't a plain square at the back, I placed some rooms there as well. I obviously went up to the 4th floor, but I only used 2 floors because for the cafe it really didn't have to be 4 floors high. So the 3rd and 4th floor is just for roofing. It would be really difficult to get up there anyways unless you use like ladders, because the stairs do take up quite some space, and because the walls are medium height, the stairs would be longer, so it would need more space for you to place it. So we're only using the 1st and the 2nd floor for this build. And then I wanted some water, so I did place that water hole there. I just wanted to make sure that I put the rocks in there. I am a little bit frustrated though that the rocks in the world are not in the live edit menu. I had to use rocks from a different pack that looked similar to it. I think it was the rocks from live edit for get together. And oh yes, I forgot to mention this, because it is a cafe, you will need get together for it to function as one. That's the pack that the cafes come with. If you do not have get together, I did use get together in this build, so if you download it from the gallery, some items may disappear, like the cafe stand and so on, or the barista stand that you'll see me place down when we go inside. Those things will disappear, but I think there will be enough things left over to where you can perhaps convert this maybe into a lounge or into a bar instead of having it be a cafe. So yes, and then here you can see I'm struggling with the roofing in the front, and I think I was talking about something else completely different and I completely lost what that was. But I did want to mention that the roof paint for this build comes from Eco Lifestyle. It is the only pack that I have that has this vibrant red color, so you would need that if you want this vibrant red color. But there are other red swatches for roof paint in the roof category. I just wanted this one, so just bear in mind that that is something that you will also need for the overall look of this build. And then some of the roofs I did pull out further than, for example, where the room ended, just so that it can look like there's mushrooms kind of growing everywhere and they're kind of sporadic. And you can also see I used a lot of the new packs paint. The windows, I only use windows from the new pack for this build. And I also placed it on a higher level using terrain. Now that was in and of itself something that I had to trial first before I actually built this on camera, because I wanted to see what it would look like. I just wanted it to sit at a different level than the other buildings in this world. And I also wanted to mention this as well. I wanted to build something fun for Sims to go to. I feel like we always get bars and lounges, which makes sense because they are the only activities really in the base game, or community lots in the base game. So I wanted to build something different. So this is on the lot that there was a bar originally. I just felt like this mushroom look would fit on this lot, and then also fit this part of the world, which is Sprucederry Grove, as I mentioned in the beginning. And that's why I decided to demolish the bar and place this cafe instead. On the topic of there not being things or enough things in this world, I did get to explore afterwards, or after my last video, and I was expecting more from the town square area. I think it's called Coast of Admore. I was very surprised by all of the shells in that area. You couldn't even really build anything there to make it look a bit better without those shells kind of ruining the vibe. I don't like the shells in that town center, and I also don't like rabbit holes. I hate that they included a rabbit hole grocery store. Just give us a functional one at this point. Like, damn, it can't be that hard. And also, if you're not going to give us a functional grocery store, give me the items and I will build one. Give me the lot instead of, placing this rabbit hole there, so that I can build the functional grocery store so that we can have places for our Sims to go to. I love going everywhere with my Sim, and I know that may just be me, and some things definitely make sense as a rabbit hole, but I would like a functional grocery store. Is that too much to ask for? One of my first builds that I actually posted was a functional grocery store, but I made that with CC, and I never ended up uploading it like to my Patreon or anything like that, which I should do. And I know it's still in my CC save file, so maybe when I decide to go back there I will make my changes, because there's obviously changes that I will want to make now and then upload it finally to Patreon. But anyways, I say all of that to say that I just really want a functional grocery store. And then I was exploring other things in the lot. I like the idea of the gnome museum. I just feel like maybe there could be other things as well. And then there's like this huge square with just builds that are shells, like the live edit buildings, and I wish they kind of included a spot there for something else, so that place could be just more lively. There's just too much shell buildings at the moment. I will say though, when I opened this cafe to playtest a lot, there was a lot of Sims here, and it was so cool that the barista was a plant Sim, the first barista was a plant Sim, and then the second one was a fairy. So I think I will be including clips of that either at the beginning or the end of this video. I'm not sure at this point because I did get a few clips, but I didn't edit those clips just yet before I'm making this voiceover. But that was a cool thing. And then I mean, Judith Ward shows up with paparazzi, and it's just like, ah, okay. But she must always be at every place that you open for the first time, which I think is kind of cool because maybe she's like the celebrity that's attending the opening of a store or whatever. I always have that happen. She always shows up when I open up a new community lot. So I think maybe that's just like a cool feature to have her there all the time. And then here currently you saw me place that flower thing over the doors. Now I did this again to test it to see maybe if it was something to do with last week's build, but it isn't. You can't place those things over doors. You can place a different version over the doors, but that arch flower thing cannot go over doors. I think it's only meant for windows, because then your Sim will not be able to go through the door, which is unfortunate because I actually like that one more than I like the other one. There's two versions of this wallflowers or wall grass leaves thing. What, I don't know, I forgot the name of it, but there's two versions of that, and the one you can place over a door, but the other one you can't. And the other one looks like it belongs on a door because it literally has an arch, but it doesn't work. Sim cannot access any place that has that door or that arch on it, sorry. And then I used a chimney. I think it's just from one of the other packs. I can't remember exactly. But I wanted also there to be water flowing somewhere. So I used the waterfall rocks from the Riviera Retreat kit. And then I think I said in the beginning that I used rocks from Debug for Get Together, because they did not place any of the rocks that you see in this area in live edit, which I don't get, because I really wanted to make sure that it fit in with the other rocks that was around this build, but it wasn't in live edit unless I missed it, or unless the color is maybe a bit different, but I didn't see it there. And then for the landscaping, I did cut a lot of the landscaping out because I was so intimidated by this lot was a lot bigger than I was expecting to decorate. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do for the landscaping. And I was just, like I said, intimidated by the landscaping that I had to do. So I do show some of it, but I did end up cutting out a lot of that because I felt like the most important part was the inside in any event. And that was the part that I really wanted to showcase in this video. And so that's what you're going to see most of in this build. Now I am here currently trying to figure out which terrain paint I want to go with. I went with none of the ones that you currently see on screen, and I also chose to use the base game grass terrain paint to paint the entire lot because I didn't like the grass that it came with originally, like the original terrain. So I covered the entire area with that grass from the base game, or the terrain paint from the base game, and then I used this stone paint, and I think it's from Get Together, but I ended up changing it to the one from Cottage Living with the pink flowers in between. Now I've never had this bug with terrain paint where the terrain disappears, or it's not the same when you come back into the build as you maybe left it. I actually had it for the first time with this lot, and I've heard a lot of people complain about how terrain paint can do that sometimes, but I never really had that happen or had that experience. So when I came back into the lot, I changed it to the Cottage Living terrain paint, and then came back and it was this one again that you see on screen right now that's going down in the middle. So if you download the build and it looks a little bit different from the photos that I have at the end, or it has this terrain paint, then that's why. But I did change it, and I did upload the changed version to my library, and then I will be uploading it to the gallery or after I upload the video. And then I use these bushes. Now these bushes we got from a Christmas event for last year, and I love them because they have the little twinkle lights in them, so I prefer them over the ones without. So I just use that to kind of shape the area that I'm gonna have for outdoor seating. But like I said, I cut out a lot of the landscaping, so you're gonna see me transition to the finished product. I wish it took that amount of seconds, but it doesn't. It took me maybe like an hour and a half to finish up all of this landscaping. The lot was just a lot bigger than I expected it to be, and I wanted a cute cafe, but unfortunately this lot, just I liked this lot, so that's why I went with it. And then you currently see on the screen on the left hand side, if you've noticed, you'll be seeing double, and it's because when I was recording, OBS does this weird thing, which is the recording software that I use, where without me realizing I must be moving it or whatever, like moving the screen that the recording is focused on, but I must have moved it, and that's why it's showing double on the left hand side. It's not too distracting to me. I know it may be to someone else, so I wanted to point that out, but at some point it's gonna go back to normal because luckily I did pick it up before I started recording other parts of this video. And yeah, so I hope that is not too distracting, and you can kind of see all of the objects at least that I'm picking out of the catalog. And then I use these mushrooms from the live edit menu for the new pack, and or the live edit objects. I always say live edit menu, but that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the live edit objects, and they glow at night, so they are so pretty, and they just add an extra light to the build. And I used the cluster of mushrooms that you saw me place in one of the corners, that cluster that you see right now. I use that inside as well, and it just gives off this really pretty orangey red light that I think added to the build. And now we've moved on to how I made these polka dots on the roof. So I'm using the light from My Wedding Stories, and my biggest tip for this is raise them up from the ceiling, because currently you can see I'm raising them. I raise that one up from the ground. Now the problem is when you raise them up from the ground and you play with walls down, it will show. So when I was first doing this, I raised them up from the room and from the ground, and what was happening was you could see all the balls in the air when I was playing with walls down, and I just felt like that was going to be so distracting for someone. So I removed them all, and I was not going to do it. And then I thought about, okay, what if I raise them up from the ceiling? So you can kind of see now that it's actually snapping to the ceiling section and not to the floor of the room. So when you now play with walls down and they snap to the ceiling instead of the floor, or you raise it up from the floor or the room, then you won't see them. You'll only see them when you page down from the roof. I hope that makes sense. But you know how I had it in the beginning where you could kind of see the ceiling and then all of the balls? You will only ever see the balls if you have the game like that at the moment. So if you have the roof page down. I hope that makes sense. But yes, I'm using the light ball from My Wedding Stories. It's either outdoor lighting or the lamps category. So I'm using that, and the nice thing about it is that it actually glows and lights up at night, which I think is one of the prettiest parts of this build, is that the fact that those balls actually light up. I think I did show it if it didn't pass already, or if it's coming. I do show at one point how it looks with the lights off. So I just wanted to note that. And then I placed those plants on the roofs, but I ended up removing the ones that are next to the dormer that I placed just above the door. I just felt like it's maybe a bit too much plants, and so I removed that. And I also changed some of the mushrooms to this green color, just to have it be a bit different. But we have moved inside now, and so I pulled out the barista stand from the catalog, and I don't like how the barista stand looks. I also don't feel like it fits in with the rest of the items that I'm going to use in here. So I drew a half wall, and it does work. So you can still order from the barista stand. The customers can still collect the items from the stand as well. And even sometimes the barista will place the cups and stuff on the half wall, so it actually functions in that way as well. So that is not going to hinder any of the Sims from being able to use or to get coffee or whatever. And then I also placed this island pieces on the side because I wanted a seating area. Now I forgot the stairs in this build because at one point I'm gonna delete those stairs and then I completely forgot to add them, and so I added them at the end, and the space where I added them in made it very, very narrow, and I didn't like that. So I ended up adding the stairs to the second floor on the outside, which I felt actually looked a lot better. So it's at the back of the build up to the second floor because I wanted the pathway where it's currently at to be more open. And so yes, I did that afterwards because I only really thought of that idea once I finished recording the video. And then I'm just decorating now with the kitchen clutter kit. It has a lot of the clutter items that I felt like went well with this build. It really is a staple now in my building process to use that kitchen clutter kit. And then I used the board at the back. I think that's from Get Together. And then I found these coffee bags in the debug menu, and then I placed teas on that shelf over there, which is the teas from Snowy Escape, and then the other one is also from Get Together, and then the one is from Outdoor Retreat that I placed on top of that. And then I found these cups. These are from Everyday Clutter, and there's actually a cup with mushrooms on them, which is what you saw me place on the counter. And then I was just looking for something to go on that small open space on the shelf over there. I used this light a lot with the mushrooms in them because, you know, this is the Shroom Cafe. So, and by the way, I don't know if I love that name, but that's the best name I can come up with. I'm not necessarily the most creative when it comes to names and so on. So I placed a lot of mushroom things or mushroom related things in this build. And then you see now I placed down those lights, and those are from the Party Essentials kit, but I ended up removing them later on because I wanted to make sure that all of the lights that I placed down, I placed them before, and this was the only time that I ever placed down those lights in this build, and I felt like maybe they stood out a bit, so I changed them to one of the other lights that you'll see me place down later. And then I placed down this wall decoration with the leaves on. This is the one that you can place over doors and then have your Sim be able to move freely in and out of the door. I'll see when another example come up of the other one that doesn't work with doors. But if you ever run into that problem where you have placed something down over the door, one of these items, and they can't go in, it's probably because it's the one that doesn't allow that. And then I use a lot of the chairs and tables from the kit, and I forgot about the gnomes, but at one point I think when I was landscaping, I did place in all of the gnomes around the build and so on. And then you saw me place that mushroom shaped long thing outside. I didn't know that that was actually a water emitter from Growing Together, but I was like, oh, I can use this as an umbrella or find a way to use it as an umbrella. So I was going to use that. And then I looked at the name and I was like, oh, I can't use this outside because it would just be disastrous to have a water emitter outside. So I removed that at one point, but that is only all that I really did for that cafe area. I like to create a cordoned off area for them to be able to order, and then the door for the barista is actually at the back, which you would have seen me add, so they can go in from that section. And I don't know if you would be able to only lock the door for the barista, but I don't think you would be able to. And then here I wanted to use a couch. I like couch seatings in a cafe, but it makes it more complicated to place down a couch because your Sims wouldn't be able to really sit there at the table. Like, they would be flying their hands around that they could not get there. So to get around that issue, you build a basement under where you would like to have a couch at the table. You then place the couch in the basement and raise it up from the basement into the first floor. You can only really do this on the first floor. It doesn't look right with the second floor because then you have that issue that I had with the balls where they will show up even if you're not on the second floor but you're playing with walls up or walls down, you will forever see the couch flying in the air. So it doesn't make sense to do it for a second floor. So on the first floor you can do it because obviously you can place a basement. And you saw what I did now is I placed the table in there to see where the seats would be situated, but the table is on the first floor. Only the couches and the stools, the mushroom stools, are in the basement. So one trade-off when you're doing this method is that your sim will walk through the couch to get to the chairs that you've attached to the table. Because what you're going to do is you're going to attach chairs to the table as normal and then size those chairs down very small. Now, when you go into this build, you will be able to see the chairs, just because I wanted you to have the option to choose for your sim to sit there. If I size it down, I can size it down with the tool mod and you wouldn't be able to see it, but then your sims wouldn't really choose to sit there. However, in my gameplay, I actually discovered that sims chose to sit there. I didn't need to prompt them to go and sit there. They chose to sit there. And then in this section as well, where you see the couch and again the mushroom stools, I did the same thing. I drew a basement under, I raised the stools and the couch up, but I placed the table with normal chairs attached to it that I then sized down. You can kind of see the small blue chair at the moment right there that I sized down to go under the mushrooms and then under the couch. So then the only trade-off will be, like I was saying previously, that the sim will walk through the couch to get to the chair. I don't mind that. I like the animation more of seeing them sit at the couch and have conversations. You would have seen that in the clips that I attached. I think it's so cute, so I would choose that. But I did keep the chairs like really small under the couch so that if you wanted your sim to go and sit there, you can choose for them to do so. With the mushrooms, it's a bit more complicated because the chairs fit really nicely under that mushroom. So you wouldn't really be able to choose for them to really sit there unless you maybe size the chair up from build mode, or you move the chair ever so slightly outside of the mushroom so that you could still select it. I think I did that maybe on one or two of the mushrooms so that you can still choose for your sim to go and sit there. But just note that you will see the small chairs under the couch and then obviously the small part of the chair sticking out from the mushroom. But you don't need the tool mod to actually do this. I think you could do it without the tool mod. I've only ever done it with the tool mod. However, you don't need the tool mod for this build to show up this way or to function in your game in this way. And when I say the tool mod, I'm referring to a mod by TwistedMixie, one of the best building mods ever. In fact, I can't build without it. I had to wait to build my last build for the update to come out since the game was updated, just so that I could feel comfortable to build, because I really do enjoy building with the tool mod. It just allows you to move objects and raise objects and also rotate objects in ways that the game usually doesn't allow you to do. So that's why I do really love to build with it. And then here in this section of the cafe, this wall was very boring, but I didn't want to continue to use this other wallpaper everywhere. So, oh yes, I'm just replacing the lights now. I think that's one from Vintage Glamour, or I actually don't know. It's Vintage Glamour or Get Famous. But yes, as I was explaining before, I didn't want to use this wallpaper everywhere, but I thought, let me create a feature wall in this other area just using that wallpaper on one section of the room. And I did the same thing with the basement, as you can see there for the couches here, but I end up removing the couches and just using the normal chairs that came with a pack for the table here, because I didn't really like the swatches of the couches that much. And oh yes, very important, when you are raising couches up from the basement, place lights in the basement because the lighting will be different. The game doesn't recognize the object as being on the first floor, it recognizes it as being in the basement, so it will take on the light that's in the basement. And so you will notice a difference in the shading of the couches, maybe versus the other objects that are on the first floor, because the lighting is different. It doesn't bother me as much, but you can always just, if you don't like it, I know, you know, certain things may bother me but it may not bother you, and then vice versa. So if you do not like the lighting, or you do not like the Sims clipping through the couch, then remove the couch and just place normal chairs there, and yeah, then you won't have those issues. And so I was explaining about the feature wall, but I wanted to create something different for the wall in that room, and then I decided to carry it over into this hallway as well. And I just used the same mushrooms and then this glowing mushroom, which is just so pretty, like I mentioned before, and I placed that in a grassy area. So I just made that part of the floor grass, and later on I went in and I used a fence from the base game to just cordon it off or to clean it up, because it felt a bit weird to me that there was grass and then there was this other flooring, you know. So I just did that with that fence. It's a really small fence or low fence in the base game that I use for that. And then I placed some other plants in there as well. I also placed the fireflies in there, so in love mode you can actually see the glowing fireflies flying around. I think this hallway is probably my favorite part of this build. And yeah, so that's really all that I have to say on that. And then this, I don't like a boring white wall, so I placed down the arch. That is the arch that you cannot use over doors, the flower arch or the leaf arch, whatever. And then I placed on the mirror and just 2 columns to kind of create a separate section on that wall. And then this rug, I just changed the swatch of that rug to a lighter color later on. And here we have the bathroom, and it's really the only bathroom in this build. I think maybe I should have included an additional bathroom upstairs, but what I noticed is that when Sims were here, not a lot of them were actually using the bathroom, so I don't think it was necessary to really place down any more bathrooms. But I just obviously split the two to create 2 different stalls, and then had the sinks in the one section. I used, for the most part, the new bathroom items that we got with the pack, and then I just used that rug from bathroom stuff, or what's it called? Is it called bathroom stuff? The kit, the bathroom kit, whatever, bathroom clutter, that's what it's called. And then I used the bathroom clutter, I think toilet papers, or it may be from the base game, and then I used those toilet rolls from the bathroom clutter kit. Moving on to these sinks, however, they do not have any slots on the top part to place down the soap dispensers. Those are the ones from bathroom clutter. So I pulled out the red shelf, which is a shelf that just allows you to place objects. It's a CC object, but I deleted it afterwards, so it won't come up on the gallery as being a CC item. You can use a normal shelf to do that with as well. I just prefer using the red shelf to then place the objects on the sink, because for some reason the sink does not have any slots. And so now we have moved up into the upstairs area, and here I wanted to make more of a conversational pit for people who don't necessarily want to sit down at the tables downstairs, want to come up here, read, have coffee, whatever. And so I used this for that mainly. But here you would have seen that I forgot to place the stairs, and at some point I do go and place the stairs, but the place where I put it was, you could see it was like a last minute decision, and I just decided to remove it from the inside and move it to the outside, which I think actually functions just as well. And then I had to use, unfortunately, the table, the chairs from Cozy Bistro, the long chair, I forget what it's called, but I used that, and I don't like the ones from Dine Out, which is why I didn't use that one. And I used just the normal table and chairs there, just because I couldn't do that thing with the couch here on the second floor again, so I had to use that normal couch, restaurant couch looking thing that you see there, that I can't remember the name of at the moment. And then I initially placed the couch that you see in the middle against this wall that connects to this circle room that you see me making now, because I forgot that the room was there, because I didn't place down any arches or anything like that. So by the time that I realized that I placed all of these objects here where I actually wanted to create this other room, I had to remove all of the objects and place them in the middle. And that's why you saw it kind of cut out there in the middle, because I had already placed down all of the objects, and then I basically had to switch where I put them down. And so I just created a small reading nook in that corner, And then where I did place the stairs down, you'll see it show up eventually. I removed that stairs, right? So I had that open space there in the back corner, and I just placed down some bookshelves over there so that you could have a reading space for the Sims that come up here. However, the thing is, the Sims leave the books everywhere. They do not put them back in the shelf, and I don't understand why they don't do that. So when I came up here, and just before I uploaded my final draft, I guess, for this build, there was books laying everywhere upstairs and I had to place them back or delete them, just so that when you downloaded this build, it wasn't laying everywhere. And so now we've moved on to the final part of this build, and this is the outside section. I just put down a few chairs and seating areas here as well, just for Sims to be outside and chill if they wanted to not be on the inside. And I used the coffee table and then also the chair from, or the bench from, the new pack that we got. And oh yes, this tree that you see in the middle, one of my favorite trees in the game, it is from Businesses and Hobbies. I knew that when I built this lot, I was going to place that tree somewhere. It will probably make an appearance in every fairy build that I build from here on out. But this is all that I have for this build. Please let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the name Shroom Cafe, or if you have a better suggestion. You can find this build under SimWithMishka or hashtag SimWithMishka on the gallery. If you have any other ideas, please consider popping those in the comments. And please also consider subscribing and liking this video if you did enjoy it and you would like to see more of my content. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your support. And I will chat to you in the next one. Bye bye.